Summer is quickly coming, and if you're anything like me, your time is about to evaporate. So here's the question. Do you have just 1 hour a week? Let me answer that for you. Yes, you do. And that's all you need to start transforming your content strategy. Most entrepreneurs are spending 20 hours a week creating content that disappears in minutes. Let's fix that. Join me for a totally free and live training called Create Once, Traffic for Months, the 1 hour Pinterest plan to extend your content's lifespan. You can snag your free seat at teachmetopin.com. Now, this is the kind of set it and forget it marketing that keeps working while you take a step back. It even works beautifully if you choose to outsource it. You've already created the content, so let's make sure it keeps working for you, bringing in traffic, email subscribers, and leads from people who are actually searching for what it is that you offer. I'm a verified Pinterest educator and I've helped over 25,000 entrepreneurs do exactly this. Now, let me help you. Grab your free spot right now at teachmetopin.com. That's teachmetopin.com. And trust me, your future summer self will be thanking you. This episode is brought to you by Shipo, your one-stop solution for shipping labels, helping small businesses like yours save up to 90% off retail rates. For a limited time, Shipo is offering listeners $25 in Shipo credit when you spend your first $25. That means shipping your first few packages is basically free. I'll never forget those early days after launching my online shop. Our living room was filled with products, and I was taping up boxes late at night, printing shipping labels manually, and paying full price from the big carriers. It was really exciting, but shipping was hands down the most stressful part. That's why I wish I had Shipo sooner. With Shipo, you can manage all your orders from one dashboard, get the best discounted rates from top carriers, connect your stores, and print labels in batches. It is a total sanity saver. So head on over to shippo.com/goaldigger and claim your spend 25, get 25 offer today. That's shippo.com/goaldigger.
And I imagine for a lot of people, especially, we're all, business to business, but for business to consumer, there's a lot of room for you to inspire people on Pinterest that gets them curious. So starting with that mentality first when you create content, I think is such a great way to leverage your Pinterest strategy where it will grow.
I'm Jenna Kutcher, your host of the Goal Digger podcast. I escaped the corporate world at the age of 23 with nothing more than a $300 camera from Craigslist and a dream. Now I'm running a 7-figure online business that feels even better than it looks, all from my house in small town Minnesota with my family. Here, we value time as our currency. We mix the woo and the work, and we are in the pursuit of building businesses that give us the freedom to live lives that we love. I've always loved turning big goals into reality, and I'm here to help you do the same. This isn't just a peek behind the curtain. Come along with me and my guests as we tear the whole curtain down. Every week, we tackle practical, no-fluff marketing strategies and host honest discussions on what works and what doesn't. Join me and my expert guests for actionable insights to help you grow your dream business with confidence. Pull up a seat and get ready to be challenged, inspired, and empowered. This is the Goal Digger Podcast. Do you ever feel like your content has the shelf life of a ripe avocado? Like you pour your heart into a blog post, a podcast episode, or even a video, and it gets a little bit of love before it disappears into the void. What if I told you that there's a way to make the same piece of content live longer, work harder, and drive traffic for months without creating more and more and more? Now, I am sitting down and chatting with some women today about one of my favorite topics, which is Pinterest. We are all a part of the Pinterest Educators Program, and I am so honored to be included in this. Pinterest recently hand-selected a very small group of experts who not only teach the platform, but use it daily to drive results for their own brands and clients. It's basically Pinterest's way of saying like, hey, these people know their stuff. It's a stamp of approval on the strategies I've been sharing for years, and it means that I get to partner with Pinterest directly to bring you trusted, experience-backed education that actually works in real life. So today, I'm bringing on my guest to geek out about one of my all-time favorite platforms, and I'm pulling back the curtain on how we are using Pinterest in 2025 to breathe new life into our content. This conversation with Heather Ferris and Kate All isn't about trendy graphics or chasing viral pins. It's about strategic, sustainable visibility. And if you follow my process, it will only take you an hour a week. Inside this discussion, we're covering what's actually working on Pinterest right now, how to repurpose existing content for long-term reach, the biggest myths that might still be holding you back, and the simple system that helps you create once and keep showing up without having to be on all the time. Oh, and if you love this conversation, I would love for you to save your seat for my free class. It is Create Once, Traffic for Months, the Pinterest plan that extends your content's lifespan in just 1 hour a week. You can save your seat at teachmetopin.com. That's teachmetopin.com. And inside this masterclass, I'm going to walk you through all the things that we're talking about. And I'm also going to show you how to take one piece of content and turn it into 10 pins and allow you to extend your content's lifespan and get off the burnout train. It's going to sum up everything in this conversation and a little bit more. Again, that's teachmetopin.com to save your seat. All right, let's get into it. I'm ready to nerd out. Kate All and Heather Ferris, welcome to the Goal Digger Podcast. Okay, so I'm going to start with this. I'm so excited. I get to nerd out with two fellow obsessive Pinterest gals. So Heather, why do you think Pinterest is the most underrated but obvious platform to be on in 2025?
It's the reason why people are on the platform to begin with. They're there for selfish reasons, not to watch funny memes. I mean, maybe they're doing some of that. I mean, my teenager definitely does some of that. But generally, I find the people I work with and the people in their audiences are there for selfish reasons. They're there to shop. They're there to get inspired. They're there to find DIY projects they can bring into their lives. Whereas I go to Instagram and I'm shooting it back and forth with friends with funny memes and GIFs and reels, and I'm building community there. Yeah. That's why I think it's still an underrated place.
I love that. And I also do think it's so important when you think of intent. I was just talking to a friend the other day and she's like, you know what? I never feel lousy about myself when I scroll Pinterest. I'm not there doom scrolling. And I was like, preach. She's like, I've never left a Pinterest scroll session feeling not enough. And I think that is huge because a lot of people use Pinterest to plan. And when you think of planning, a lot of times planning requires purchases, right? So people are on there, I use it to plan vacations or home purchases or even business plans. And so it's so interesting. Kate, why do you think Pinterest is underrated, but it's obvious?
I think it's one of those things that gets wrapped up in the dopamine hits, right? I have a phrase that I use commonly, which is Instagram is like a bar, Pinterest is like a library. That engagement doesn't cross. And I think a lot of people associate Instagram, TikTok, they have their frame of marketing there and they try to overlay it on Pinterest. And it's like taking this loud conversation into a library and people are looking at them like, why are you here? This doesn't make sense. And so they feel out of place. They don't know how it works. And so they easily give up. And because they don't feel the same, right? There's not as much likes or comments or views, but it is that long game. And I think sometimes in this whole marketing landscape, people feel burned out. They feel frustrated. They feel overwhelmed. So if you tell them, hey, this platform is amazing, but you're going to have to give it some time, they're like, I'm out. I need feedback, or maybe even they're addicted to it, right? So when they frame up that it is more like a library, I think they can grab hold and really make it part of their marketing plan. But until then, they just kind of put it on the shelf and say, I'll get to that later when I have more time.
Which, by the way, has any of us ever created more time? No, that doesn't happen. I love that analogy. I've never heard that, Kate. And I think that's so powerful because I do think that what happens is people literally, just try to copy and paste what's working in other places without understanding the main difference. And one of the things I talk about all the time is a lot of times I feel like subconsciously we group Pinterest with social media because we see it with all the icons, right? You think of a website and you see the Instagram icon and, TikTok or whatever it is, and you see Pinterest there. And so naturally, I think our brains have just associated it as social media, but there isn't a ton of socializing happening there. And so it's such a huge distinction that it's a search engine. It's not social media. And so when you know that it's a search engine, you approach it from such a different way. And so the next question I have that I want to jam on is just like, have you guys heard, or like if somebody says to you, Heather, Pinterest just doesn't work for me. Like, what's the first thing that pops into your head?
How long have you been using it? What's your strategy? Like, do you have a strategy? Like, are you using keywords? What are your images? Are you just posting Instagram Reels over there? There's just so many questions I can like go down in a rabbit hole on. And most of the time, it's because someone's been trying it for like 3 months and they're like, whatever, I'm done with this. Like Kate said, there's like the dopamine hits. It's not there.
So interesting, because to me, there is nothing more sexy than longevity. Like,
I know.
when we think about that, it's like, to me, like, it is such a frame of reference of like how our minds can shift, especially as we get older, our life gets busier. But to me, I'm like, there is nothing sexier than the fact that my business is running while I'm chasing my kids or out in the garden or like enjoying life or reading a book. I'm like, that is sexy. But it is funny because I do think we have gotten so wired to have that instant gratification. And it's really fascinating to me because I feel like if all of us asked like any business owner, like, hey, do you want your business to be around a year from now? Like, what about 5 years from now? 10 years from now? Like, everyone would be like, yes, yes, yes. And it's like, okay, so what are you doing that is going to help give you that longevity? And it's interesting because I do feel like there is a very substantial disconnect between those questions and those thoughts of like, yes, I want a long-term business, but I don't want a long-term strategy. And it's like, how do we bridge that gap? So Kate, if somebody was coming to you and they're like, hey, Pinterest just doesn't work, like, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I would go back to asking them, so what you said, right? Like, well, what do you want for your business? Do you want something where you are on this hamster wheel, where you are creating this content, hoping for the virality, hoping this one thing is going to make it big? Or do you want to build a long-term sustainable business where you get traffic daily, where you get sales daily, where you do have to put in the effort to kind of like build your fence posts along the way? And when we get down to that, honestly, people have to really wrestle that out to say, okay, well, maybe you started your business and you did go viral immediately. Maybe that's how you grew, was that suddenly tons of people knew who you were. And now that's worn off. And you have to ask yourself, okay, how am I going to go the distance? Do I want a long-term business? Do I want to build it? And if you do, then you get to that point of, okay, now we're going to investigate, what were you doing on Pinterest? What were you trying? What were all these other things? But oftentimes I find it's back at that first step where you have to ask them, what do you want? And if you want long-term business, use Pinterest.
Yes. Oh my gosh. You know what's so funny is the other day I had a post that did go like viral-ish. So I had a couple million views on Instagram. And I was like, all right, let me like just dig into the analytics of this. And so one, it got a ton of views, but that didn't actually translate into much of anything when it came to followers. Two, it brought in all of these non-followers into my ecosystem and into my comments section just to say their two pieces and then like walk away, right? And so I'm like, oh, all of a sudden there's all these men commenting on this post about motherhood. And I'm like, excuse me, you were not invited to this party. But what's hilarious is that in a culture that is so obsessed with going viral, I don't think we recognize that virality does not equal results, right? Like if you went on to Shark Tank and Mark Cuban is like, okay, like tell me what your strategy is. And you're like, I had this one post go viral. And they ask you like, well, what became of that? Or what did you actually sell from that? There is a really hard way to connect virality to results. And so I think it's like this cultural thing where, again, we want instant gratification, we want the dopamine hits, we want the virality. But if we actually look at what we really are after, what we want our time to be connected to, which is results, virality does not necessarily connect the dots there. And so it's so fascinating. So one thing that I love that you guys were talking about is like, okay, well, what's your strategy? And I feel like people approach Pinterest in two ways. They're either like the passive pinner, right? Where you're like, I'm just going to go on and scroll and like make pretty things and organize, which I think is like the majority of people. Like I would assume the majority of my listeners at least have a Pinterest account and they're using it for personal use. But what I think a lot of people don't understand is that they can be contributors to Pinterest. Like the pins that they are browsing were brought onto the platform by other Pinterest users. And I didn't know that. Like when I first got started on Pinterest, I thought just having the little P in the corner of my blog images was the strategy, right? Like I was like, That's it, right? And so I think that a lot of times people will send me a screenshot and they'll be like, oh my gosh, I saw your pin on Pinterest. That's so cool. And I'm like, yeah, I put it there. And so I want to know, how are you two using Pinterest? So let's talk a little bit about the strategy. So how, Heather, are you using Pinterest in your business right now? Like, what is your current rhythm? How are you keeping it like this approachable thing that doesn't feel like a super heavy lift?
Every blog post and YouTube video. So you guys publish first on your podcast. I publish first on YouTube.
Okay.
So every YouTube video turns into a blog. And once those blogs are published, we make pins for them. So that's essentially the strategy I take with all the clients and students I work with as well. So our pillar pieces of content become pins, and then we just continue to rotate through those, especially if they're really good converters. I have a number of blogs over the years that have become pillar pieces of content that I just update year after year. They get a new YouTube video every year, they get new images, and then we just continue to pin them and breathe life into them. So that's like the holistic view.
I love that. And I love too that you're talking about longevity, like posts that have lasted years, both on your blog and on Pinterest. We have found, like, here's something that I think blew all of our minds. And you guys were the ones that were like, Jenna, I used to think that the lifespan of a pin was 4 months. I don't know where that stat came out at one point.
It was out for some, I just recently, Jenna, updated my own slides because Pinterest didn't tell me that it was 13 and a half months or whatever.
13 months is the average lifespan of a pin. So, and that's like the half-life too. I was like, this language is even deceptive in that, like, it'll go longer than 13 months. And what's crazy to me is, even if you think about Instagram posts, say, for example, the average lifespan of an Instagram post, 28 to 48 hours. Okay. At best, right? Like, those are like the ones that don't die on the vine, where you're like, does anyone even see this thing? And so when you think about all the effort and the time, I just saw a statistic that the average reel takes somebody 3 to 4 hours to create. And the fact that it can die within 24 hours is insane. But then if we alter that with the fact that one singular pin on Pinterest experiences its half-life in 13 months, it's insane to me how we're spending our time. So Heather, I love how you kind of start with, like, what is your pillar? Because it's not limited into how you create, right? It could be for bloggers, YouTubers, podcasters, Instagrammers, writers. Like, there's no genre that it can't be touched on. But it's basically like, how do we take one thing and turn it into 10, 20, 30? How do we take one piece and take it from 24 hours and turn it into months, if not years? And I just want to shake people a little bit of, like, you're missing this. What does it look like for you?
Really quickly, to talk about the time length, and Kate, I'd love to know this for you guys too. It takes me like 2 minutes to make a Pinterest pin.
Yes.
Not 4
I mean, like,
hours.
mic drop right there. Okay, Kate, what does this look like for you in your business?
Yeah. So our workflow is, we do the podcast, which is turned into a blog post, which is actually now turned into a YouTube video at the same time. So we can get some more extended value off of that. And then we create 2 images from there for Pinterest. And we also do short form video from that as well. But one of the things we've learned over the years is that in 2017, I pinned a pin about how to clean up Pinterest boards. And that pin has brought me almost 200,000 sessions to my site since then, and over like 2,000 email leads. That's just passive. And what we learned from that, granted, I mean, that's 8 years ago right now, so it's still going. We learned that people on Pinterest, they like how-to content. So whenever we do how to upload video, how to do a carousel pin, that always rises to the top. But when we do other things about, I don't know, side issues of like doing a great Pinterest image or something like that, if it doesn't include how to, it doesn't get good engagement. So this first kind of, I guess you would call it viral, but to your point of 13 and a half months, it's like, it takes so long for that to build. And I would always have up and to the right as opposed to a big spike and then down, because you can learn so much from it. So that workflow for us, podcast into blog post into 2 images, coupled with the how-to type of content, is really like magic for us.
So So the other day, I went down this rabbit hole of finding really cute matching summer outfits for my girls. I had my cart full, my dog was asleep in my lap, and of course, I didn't have my wallet on me. And so I was just about to abandon it, telling myself I would circle back later. And then that purple shop pay button popped up. One tap, it's done. It's kind of dangerous how easy it is, but it's also totally magical. Well, that little purple button, that's Shop Pay, and it's powered by Shopify. It remembers your info so that checkout can be instant. And for business owners, Shopify makes it just as easy to run your store as it is to shop one. Shopify powers 10% of all e-commerce in the US, from brands like Gymshark and Mattel to businesses just getting started. It is everything you need to launch. Gorgeous templates, built-in tools for payments, inventory, and marketing. It's all in one place. No code, no hassle. And that purple Shop Pay button, well, it's not just cute. It is why Shopify has the best converting checkout on the planet. If you want to see less carts being abandoned, it is time for you to head over to Shopify. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/goaldigger. Go to shopify.com/goaldigger. Shopify.com/goaldigger. I will never forget one of the first big girl moments I had in business. It was when I finally released the white knuckle grip I had on my business, and I finally decided to hire help. I was so excited to get help, but I quickly became so overwhelmed because I didn't know the first thing about payroll or how to stay on top of taxes as a business owner. And trust me, I just wanted to do it right without spending hours buried in paperwork. Now, if only I had had Gusto back then. Gusto is the all-in-one platform that makes payroll, benefits, and HR feel doable even if you're not a numbers person. Whether you're paying W-2s, 1099s, or offering health insurance and 401ks, Gusto's got your back. You can run payroll in just a few clicks, and Gusto will automatically file and pay your taxes at the federal, state, and the local level with no spreadsheets and no guesswork. Over 400,000 small businesses across the country, including mine, trust Gusto because it is so simple and so intuitive. If payroll's been sitting on your I'll figure it out later list, this is your sign. Right now, Gusto is offering 3 months for free when you run your first payroll. Head to gusto.com/goaldigger to get started. That's gusto.com/goaldigger. Let's touch on this because I think this is so good. So one thing that I think Pinterest forces you to do as a business owner that I think should be in every business owner's business is anticipating what are the questions people are going to ask before they can ask them, and how do I build a library of resources that helps answer their questions before they can ask them. And Kate, you just hit on this because you were like, how-to content is amazing. Not only is it going to do great on Pinterest, it's also going to set you up as an expert. It's also going to give you the opportunity to capture that traffic, right? So you even said it turned into thousands of subscribers. And it also gives people like a place to land, right? Like if you see a great how-to piece on social media, what are your options? Like how many times have we actually clicked over to the bio, clicked the link in the bio, selected the right link, gone to the page, captured? Like we don't do that. We don't take all of those steps. And so I love this too, because it challenges you as a business owner. It also gives you analytics and data to see, okay, what are people searching for? Oh, wow, I already know those things. I can create those things. And I can create them once and then have them as a resource to send people to for years to come. I just had somebody today ask me a question. I was like, oh, I wrote a blog post about this like 5 years ago, but it's still relevant. They found an old blog post and they were like, thank you so much for writing this. This like met me right where I was at today. And I'm like, we have gotten so used to and okay with creating content that just dies without ever getting results that when we see the other alternative, it almost feels too good to be true, right? Like it feels outlandish to consider that like, hey, the thing you're creating today, Heather, or the thing that you created 8 months ago, Kate, can still be generating a result for you. So I just love that tip. And I think it makes you a better business owner and a better creator when you learn how to anticipate your audience's needs and create resources around them. So I also just think it gives you like a deeper level of thinking. So for us, part of our process is this. So we have so much content coming out all the time. And so we have just kind of a rhythm and a flow. And one thing I like to tell people that if you're listening to this and you're like, I'm so overwhelmed by the idea of another platform, I also would say that Pinterest can be easily outsourced. And I say that with once you know the strategy and you have the strategy and you have created templates that you like and you get it, like I don't run my own Pinterest anymore. I very much know the strategy. I taught my VA the strategy. She spends like an hour a week. For most
Yeah.
VAs, that'd be like $20 to $40 that a business owner could literally pour into their business that could take their content and give them that longer shelf life. And so I also just remind people like it doesn't have to be you manually doing this thing. It's a very easy thing to pass on to somebody who is capable because it's not rocket science, right? Do you agree, Heather?
It's why I'm in business. It's part of my entire income. People hiring me to do that exact thing. So I also just love geeking out on the strategy per business. So I've worked with hundreds of businesses. Same with Kate over the years, worked with way more than I have, probably 20 different niches. There's 24 established categories on Pinterest. I've probably worked in all of them.
Yeah.
So
amazing. It's
the
amazing.
strategy to strategy per niche, per business, like every business owner, like Kate earlier said, like, what do you want from Pinterest? What do you want your long-term goal to be, right, Jenna? So looking at that holistically, it's just lights a fire under me. I just love it.
I love it. So I want to know, like, how does Pinterest play into your content creation process? So Kate, when you're creating, are you thinking Pinterest first? Is Pinterest the afterthought? Like, what are you thinking about when you go to create a new piece of content?
It's kind of like all in one. So if I look, I'm heavily dependent on long-term search platforms. So Google, YouTube, Pinterest are my top three. So I look at all of them and kind of look at the data. And I think you called this out a little bit earlier that we are so primed to go with what we feel. And I think platforms that are the drop in the pan, like the Instagram or the TikTok, really fuel that. Well, I'm going to go with what I think I feel is happening. But with these others, you really have to do a deep dive and say, what are people searching? What are they asking questions about? And so it's a little bit from each one. But if I'm looking at the how-to content, I know actually that will work for Google and for YouTube as well. But I want to frame it up in a way that answers the question enough, right? To where it doesn't overwhelm people too. Because I think when people approach Pinterest, they are asking a question, or like we say, they have high intent and low intent. So their high intent is they really want an answer to the question. Their low intent is they're open to being inspired. So if you can hit them on that inspiration level where, oh my gosh, I didn't even know this was possible. And I imagine for a lot of people, especially, we're all, business to business, but for business to consumer, there's a lot of room for you to inspire people on Pinterest that gets them curious. So starting with that mentality first when you create content, I think is such a great way to leverage your Pinterest strategy where it will grow. Just start with inspiration. And I still think that's where I land, but I probably go a second level into information. How can I arm them with enough that kind of hits both?
Yeah, I love that. There's a stat that like over 90% of searches on Pinterest are unbranded, which I think is
96.
like a huge stat, right? Like
Yeah.
here's what people don't even realize is it's like, I even the other day, I was like looking for a very specific, I was like, okay, I want a red dress and I want it to have this type of sleeve, like typed it all in. I don't care what brand it is. I literally am open. And I think that especially for business to consumer, like B2C businesses, oh my gosh, like this is discoverability at its core because people aren't typing in a specific brand. They're so open. And I have found brands and businesses that I love on Pinterest, even like home decor or different things like that, where I'm like, I don't care where it's coming from. This is kind of the vision. Help me hone this vision and show me what's possible. And so I feel like also that's like a massive stat that should give people confidence of like, you don't have to be the biggest fish in the pond. In fact, I would argue that it doesn't really matter. If you have a small following and a better strategy, you will 1000% outshine. And so I love too that it feels like we can err away from like the popularity contest and in essence and be more strategic, which I think most business owners desire is like, I just want to be found by the right people, right? Like I don't need all of these passive eyes on me. I just want to land in the people's places and in their vision of who I'm creating for. And so I also just like love that piece of possibility on there because it kind of feels like the little guy can win. And I feel like we don't necessarily feel that way on other platforms.
So earlier on, kind of to piggyback on what Kate had mentioned of like how she uses the platform is earlier on in my business when I didn't have a lot of Pinterest content, I would do a lot of competitor research just to see what they were talking about and then frame my expertise, in those buckets of like, okay, these are the things they're talking about. These days, I know because I've been on YouTube for so long now and I have my blog, I know what my audience wants. I've amassed an audience. I've amassed a membership of people that trust me. So they bring me the questions that they're asking, and then I'm able to take those and put them in my content to kind of help frame that awareness phase of the customer journey. As I'm looking at like placing content on Pinterest, I already know people are searching for like how to put a Pinterest banner on your profile. I know it's there. Like I've already done that research. So now I'm just framing it from the perspective of my audience of like, what are they asking? And going kind of deeper into the messaging. So I feel like that's like more advanced strategy for business owners in general. Generally, you're just like putting a pin together, like how to make a Pinterest banner.
Yes.
But level 2 of that is using your audience's language and their questions back to them, using that in your messaging. So I already know what keywords people are searching for. Like Kate, like you, Jenna, I rely heavily on search-based platforms, YouTube, Google, Pinterest, and my email list. That's not a search-based platform though.
Yeah, I love that. One thing that I think is so great is you get data. And I feel like so many other platforms, we are like lacking like clear insights of like, what does this do? Like even recently I was trying to like assess, okay, what is actually moving the needle on Instagram? And then I had to open up each post and like compare and like look at it. And one thing that I think is underestimated about Pinterest is the data and analytics that you can collect, but also the very low lift and low risk of testing out ideas and hypotheses. Like if anyone's listening to this and you're like, okay, I have this really off the wall idea, or I want to try this whole new branding, or like just anything you've considered experimenting, Pinterest is the most amazing place you can experiment because one, nobody's seeing every pin in chronological order. They're not clicking to see your grid and they're like, what the heck is going on? But two, you get real data and analytics of like, what are people saving? What are they clicking on? And so you can use it in so many different ways, whether it's testing ideas, testing out ad graphics, testing out titles and subtitles. Like there are so many ways. And so I think it kind of goes along the vein of like research of like, okay, how do I actually learn what is my audience searching for? Split test. There is literally no risk in it. And I feel like the information, the insight, along with the feeling that you're not standing on stage naked in front of your followers, being vulnerable, is like the winning ticket. It's just so beautiful. So Kate, what would you add to that? What am I missing in this?
Well, I think you're right. There is a low lift. And I think it is that first barrier of adding another platform feels so overwhelming for people. But once they get to the other side, and you know this, and Heather, you know this too, once you talk to people who already have the system built, they're like, I would never give this up. I can step away from it for a little bit. I can hire people to do it. I can put it on the back burner for a little bit and it will still bring me traffic. Like, I just think there's so many things, especially the data and the analytics that you can learn. And also it's a cold traffic source. So people don't know you. You don't know what they're going to interact with. Like you talked about, you're searching for this red dress with a certain type of sleeve. People aren't searching Jenna Kutcher or Heather Ferris or Kate All. They're going and looking for, how do I do this on Pinterest? Or how do I grow my email list? And that's what they want. They're not interested in the person. So if we can kind of like extract ourselves from the marketing, I also joke like pinners don't care about you. They don't care about your day. They don't care about what you ate. They care about the information that you have. And so if you can like step away from yourself for a minute and just give them that, I promise over time it will work. And I think a lot of people don't trust that process. That's why they get into it 2 to 3 weeks or even 4 weeks and they say, it isn't working. I'm sure we've all received emails from people who have gone through our content and our courses and our services, and they're freaking out by week 6. Like, it's going nowhere. I'm getting 0, whatever, insert your metric.
Yeah.
But then they come back 3 months later, 6 months later, and they're like, this is working. It's working so well. I never realized this could work. And now I'm not spending a ton of time. Hours. I mean, you said it earlier, 3 to 4 hours on a reel.
Yes.
That's
I mean,
insane.
it's crazy. Imagine what you could do with 3 to 4 hours with
On Pinterest.
pins on Pinterest.
Oh my gosh,
Totally.
You'd have stuff working for you like 5 years from now, just in that amount. It's like nutty. It's nutty. I love that, Kate, because I agree. It's like one of those things where, to me, what has gone so freeing in my life is knowing that things can work while I rest. And I know for me, like when I finally became a mom, all of a sudden my time evaporated, right? And I'm like, it is not only not feasible, but it isn't even attractive to try to show up online every single day. And I didn't want to. And it was so funny because I remember having this fear of like, I'm in maternity leave. I don't care about the internet right now. I'm just in this little bubble. What is going to happen to my business? And I think that time away and like taking that step back and getting off of the hamster wheel was what I needed to recognize that nothing happened, because these things aren't necessarily tied to these massive results in my business. And so what was so interesting is like, I think a lot of times entrepreneurs spend so much time building out the perfect website or the perfect landing page or like the perfect things. And they don't realize like, if nobody's seeing it and nobody's landing on it, it's not going to do what you want it to do. This episode of the Goal Digger Podcast is sponsored by Mercury, a business banking solution built for the way modern entrepreneurs actually work. Lately, I've been exploring new tools to better support my business finances. And when I started asking around, my friend and fellow entrepreneur, Hala, immediately said, Jenna, you've got to check out Mercury. She's been using it for her business and had glowing things to say. So, of course, I had to look into it. And honestly, I get the hype. With Mercury, you can track cash flow, send international payments, issue virtual cards, and even apply for capital all from one dashboard. Their credit cards come with a 1.5% cash back. And if you're working with international vendors, Mercury offers free domestic and international wires in US dollars. So if you're in that same season of figuring out what's next for your business finances, Mercury just might be the partner you've been looking for. Mercury is a technology company, not a bank. Check show notes for details. Deposit $5,000 or spend $5,000 using your Mercury credit card within the first 90 days in order to earn $250. Or do both for $500 in total rewards at mercury.com/goal. That's mercury.com/goal. Okay, real talk. You know when you get served an ad that makes zero sense for you? Like for weeks, I kept getting ads for these high-tech gaming chairs. Hi, I don't even game. I'm a mom. I'm not a Twitch streamer. That's what makes LinkedIn ads stand out. They actually get your message to the right people. That's why I love what they can do for business owners. LinkedIn ads gives you access to over 1 billion professionals. That's billion with a B. And you can target your ideal buyer by title, industry, skills, and even revenue. It takes the guesswork out of who's seeing this and helps you get in front of decision makers who actually are ready to take action. So instead of casting a super wide net, you can be laser focused and let your budget work smarter. LinkedIn will give you a $100 credit on your next campaign just so you can try it for yourself. Go to linkedin.com/goal. That's linkedin.com/GOAL. Terms and conditions apply. Only on LinkedIn ads. Years and years ago, Drew and I made this massive dream come true. We took a month-long sabbatical and we booked a little Airbnb on a tropical island. And during that trip, something just clicked. We experienced how powerful it could be to walk into a space that had been thoughtfully prepared for you, a space to rest and reflect and just be. And we started wondering out loud, could we create that kind of experience for someone else? Could we be the hosts that help people feel that same sense of ease? That idea quietly took root. Eventually, we found a small property, poured love into every single detail of it, and opened the doors. Over the years, we've had the honor of welcoming hundreds of guests, and it all started because we experienced the magic of being a guest first. Of course, hosting has its learning curves, especially when your property is far from home. If we'd had Airbnb's co-host network back then, I would have jumped at the chance. It lets you team up with a local co-host who can manage bookings, message guests, and handle the on-the-ground details so that you're not doing it all yourself. It's the kind of support that helps you start small, start smart, and still gives your guests a 5-star experience. So if you've ever wondered if you could host, this is your sign to explore it. Find your co-host and get started at airbnb.com/host. So let's talk a little bit about traffic. I think a lot of times the word traffic, people think of traffic jams and like the not so great side of traffic. But I think that a lot of entrepreneurs, what they're really struggling with in terms of making sales or getting results is the lack of eyeballs on their offers. Heather, can you break down just a really simple thought around like, how does Pinterest bring traffic and like, what can that traffic turn into, or what does it look like for you?
I mean, just a really simplistic view is somebody searches for, Pinterest marketing strategy on Pinterest, and my pins come up and they click on them, and then now they're on my website, right? So, I mean, that's like getting the horse to water. But what traffic means to me is like, because I've worked hard on the messaging, and I think this is something that's lacking. We could probably have a whole conversation about this. But people don't know why they're creating what they're creating and why their audience actually needs it, which is where a lot of the conversion leak happens. So if you're creating a blog post on how to, get your baby to sleep or whatever, but you don't actually know why people want that and you can't speak to those pain points, your pins probably aren't going to convert as well. They're not going to convert to traffic to your website. And then your website content is not going to convert to email list subscribers or sales of your product. So really understanding why people want what they want and why they need it is going to help you position your pins on Pinterest in a way that gets people to click on them. And that's really ultimately what traffic means to me, Jenna, is like, how do we make that messaging work?
Yeah. What does it look like for you, Kate?
Yeah, I would say I'll talk for me. Traffic looks like more email conversions. Traffic looks like more clients. We have an agency, so come in the door. But I think it's always good for people to interrogate that to say, are you a volume-based business or a conversion-based business? Because if traffic means I get 100 people, but I convert 10, and that's a win for me because they can sell something or it's a lead cost. Whereas other people who are ads or affiliate monetized, which is a lot of bloggers and content creators, you're always chasing the more, and more. So I think for that second group that's volume-based, it's getting to diversification to say, oh, I'm not going to just rely on this one that requires more eyeballs because that is less and less these days and it's harder to get. I'm going to diversify into a place that is a lead or it is a sale so that I can have both. So I think that's such the tension for people right now is they have to figure out like, are you volume or are you conversion? And if you're conversion, then yes, traffic is really good, but you might not need as much as you think. You might just need to be really smart about the way that you position your offer to where people instantly say yes.
Yeah.
I love that. And I think too, it's like for us, like we've recognized one, you can literally send traffic anywhere. So I think people like don't realize with pins, like you could send people to your Instagram posts if you want to grow your Instagram volume. You can send them to your podcast episodes. You can send them to your show notes. You can send them to your YouTube. Like you get to literally like map out the path, which I think is something that is so far removed in social media where it's like, we all know saying link in bio is not going to generate anything. We also know that like the ManyChat keywords are kind of going down the drain. And so it's like, again, that pure connection from like eyeballs to result, you get to kind of guide that path in what it looks like. And I think that a lot of times people just stop at the traffic piece, right? Like they're like, okay, we can get you more eyeballs, but it's like, okay, how do we actually make those eyeballs turn into something meaningful? Whether it's an email, a client, a subscriber, an email subscriber, like it could turn into so many different things that are actually valuable inside of your business. And so I think it's just interesting. So if somebody's listening, I'm like, if you built it and they haven't come yet, you might not actually be reaching the people you built it for. And you probably aren't getting enough of a volume to have the data and the insight to know what you need to fix or work on to make it actually work for you. And so it's just an interesting thing. It's like the more traffic you can get to something, the more you can see how does that traffic actually perform and what does that traffic lead into? And I think that that's a huge thing that people don't even consider and don't take the time to look into.
And can I throw something out there too for people who are listening who there's so many new people, especially Pinterest talks about Gen Z being the fastest growing demographic on Pinterest. And they have this connection between Pinterest and Instagram. And you brought this up a second ago, that when people go to Instagram, they're not going to go link in bio and click all these things in the mini chat word exhaustion piece, right? So when people see that integration, it will pop up. You'll get a lot of emails. Just think through why you want to connect it, because you can connect anything. You can turn anything on, but to be very intentional about why you're doing it. And if you're sending them to Instagram and that's all you have, because we know a lot of business owners start with just that. Yep. Why are you sending them there? And what do you hope you get from the Pinterest user? And to remember, it's two different types of audiences. You might have apples to oranges. They might not even be looking for the same thing. I mean, I know it takes a little bit of digging for people to look into the data. And again, people get exhausted by that or burned out. But I just think that's a really good thing to interrogate when you are looking at traffic and you're saying, okay, this is what I want, but is it really giving you what you want?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, I feel like the heart of this conversation is like ROI, right? Like the return on your investment. And I have said for years and years, like time is my currency. And so the ruler I am holding up is like, if I am spending my precious non-renewable time on something, what is the actual return? And if I cannot draw that line in the sand, I have a really hard time committing to things, both because I'm ADHD, but second, because I'm like, what is the point? Like, what is the point? And so what is so interesting to me is like, when I look at ROI, I'm like, okay, I can literally spend an hour a week or outsource 1 hour a week to give my content that I care about, the creative side of my business that I would never give up, that I'm obsessed with, to give that life. And it's funny because I feel like we have Pareto's principle at play so much in business, where we are spending 80, 90% of our time creating something and only 10 or 20% of our time promoting it. And so we're wondering like, well, why does it feel like I'm always making things? And like, why is this not sustainable? I was just with a YouTuber the other day and I was like, dang, like YouTube, like if you stop creating, it stops. And he's like, I know, I just like, I can't get off. Like it is what it is. And I was like, that gives me like anxiety in my chest of like feeling like you have to keep showing up. And so what's interesting to me is like the ROI, not only on the time you're spending on Pinterest as a platform, but also the ROI on all the other areas of work that you're doing, whatever platform it's on. It's like you can go into that work knowing like, hey, this is not going to die next week when I hit publish. It's not going to die a week from now, a month from now. This thing that I'm spending my precious time on is going to live this beautiful, full, rich life. And I can choose how long of a life I want it to live based on the strategy I'm putting behind it. It just makes work a lot more delightful, wouldn't you say?
100%. It makes it so that you're not like, I'm just thinking about that person who is just grinding away.
Yeah.
And there's that fear, right? Like that's underneath it of like, it's just going to be gone overnight. And so fear is driving everything that you're doing. And a lot of people we know who just rely on Pinterest, they don't have that same fear. They don't have that same angst because they know it's like they're putting a log on a fire. It's like, okay, we're just going to build this fire slow and steady. And if I take maternity leave or if I take a vacation, it's not going to fall apart. That's what I want. I don't want this thing where I'm so afraid that if I stop doing something, it's going to crumble and die.
Same. I feel the exact same way. One thing I anticipate is somebody listening and they're like, I am late to the Pinterest party. What would you say to convince them that you're right on time, Heather?
Honestly, I mean, it's growing. Kate is really good about publishing this stuff, like especially in her emails. This is where I learn about it. Okay. Anything investor wise or like growth of the company, I get this information from Kate. But like we see the company growing. It continues to grow. The stocks might be down week to week, but like overall, we see growth. And that's exciting. And I think last year, sometime we finally surpassed our COVID level growth. You know, we had a huge spike in usership in COVID and then we lost that for a while. And now we've been back on the uphill slide from that point on. And that's exciting. So continuing to see usership come on the platform, even if they're Gen Z and using weird words. Everything is aesthetic these days. That's exciting to me. So,
Kate, what would you say if somebody feels like they're late to the Pinterest party?
I would say that I think number one, they need to, well, I'm going to go back to that evaluation piece every single time of like, what is it that you want in your business? But I think like Heather said, there's so many things that are happening as far as like investor wise, they're growing. I even think for the three of us, we are part of the educator program and they are putting investments into people to help continue to teach them and help build up their company. So I would say, number one, look at the health of a company. Is it growing? But number two, look at where you want your company to go in the next couple of years. Do you want to get off that hamster wheel? Do you want to take a step back? And then do you want to make sales of your products? Do you want a new audience? If that's what you want, then you have to take a risk. I mean, it is a risk to choose to put your time, whether it's just that hour a week versus, what you're putting in other platforms. But in Pinterest now, what is it, 15 years old? And it's just the distinguished platform, right? Like there's no other platform out there that is like Pinterest. They're all different. So I think that gives it the leg up for sure.
I know. I love that too. And I'm like, honestly, if you just did one less Instagram post a week and you put that time into Pinterest, you would get the long-term results over time, right? Like, it's just like, I'm not asking you to add more to your plate. I'm asking you to divert a little bit of your time and energy into something. And honestly, I was telling someone the other day, I'm like, it's actually a really easy system and process to learn. Like the strategy is not very complex. I don't know about you guys, but like I've taken courses and it's like 8,000 steps and it takes 80 hours and you're like lost on step 3 and you're like, there's no way I'm going to be able to complete this. This is not that. And that's where I think too, people feel burned of like, I'm going to learn this strategy. And then by next week, it's going to be like obsolete. And one thing that I love about the way that Pinterest is investing in educators like us and like saying, hey, we back what they teach is it's showing us like, these are long-term principles. Like even my course from 7 years ago to the one today, it's changed. We just re-recorded a new version. But honestly, the principles and the strategy have really not changed all that much. And I don't know about anyone else, but I'm like, give me the tried and true principles that last a long time over the thing that's working this week, but won't be working next. Like that gives me comfort. And it also makes me feel like I'm not too old to learn something new or that I'm not like, irrelevant or that it's not going to work. Like I'm like, give me those things that are still going to be working a year from now or a few years from now. And I feel like Pinterest has been a very consistent platform in that when you learn the strategy, there's not a ton of things changing. There's little tiny nuances, but it's not like the whole thing is gone in a month. And I think that gives a lot of people who have dealt with algorithm shift after algorithm shift a little bit of relief. Okay, final thing is if somebody is listening to this and they have never used Pinterest besides pinning recipes that they've never cooked, what is your one recommendation for them to take action today? Heather?
It's so funny that you said that, Jenna, because I have cooked every single recipe on my Pinterest profile.
Okay, you are like the outlier of all outliers.
It's how I got started on Pinterest 15 years ago because I didn't know how to cook. So if you're starting today, really just starting with your profile. I think the easiest lift for anyone is, especially if you have a website. So I personally only work with people that have websites or shops. Like, how are people finding the content on your website? Like, what's your menu? What's your navigation? A lot of people get stuck in like, oh, what boards do I create and how many should I create? And, what do I name them and all of these different things? And it's just like, just boil it down. What's the most simple thing that someone is going to be looking for in order to find your content, Jenna, on how to start a podcast? Yeah. You're probably going to have a board, how to start a podcast.
Yep.
Podcast equipment. Yes. Podcast marketing tips. Like those 3 boards right there you could create today if you're a podcaster. And really just start to take your pillar content and make pins for them and put them in those boards. That's it. It does not need to be fancy. Just start there and you can build. And you're never married to anything. So if you create boards and you feel like they're just not working for you, you can always change them.
Yeah, I love that. I love the not married part. What about you, Kate?
I always tell people to go use the app, especially if they've never used it before, because I have to give myself like pauses from Instagram because I will just spend hours on there. And actually, when I do that, I use Pinterest more and it makes me a better marketer because I understand the user experience. And I think a lot of people who think about using Pinterest, there's a few blocks for them. One, they do feel overwhelmed because they feel like they need to do all these things, or they start to get into the comparison trap, whatever it might be. But I tell people just use it for 10 minutes, pin things, pin whatever it is that stands out to you, put it to a secret board, and then go look at it. What is it that caught your eye? What did you see when you searched? Just be curious about it. And then that starts to slowly frame up how you're going to use it. And the second layer is search your name, search your business. I met with somebody recently who was a YouTuber. She was at a food conference and she does ramen. Like that's her whole YouTube, is how to create different recipes with instant ramen. And she's huge over there. And so I said, have you put some of your shorts on Pinterest? And she's like, no. I said, let's look up your name. So she looks up her name and all these recipes pop up. And instantly she's like, wait, are people stealing my content? Are they? I'm like, no, this is how it works. Like you want this to happen because people find what you create so valuable that they're already saving it to Pinterest and you don't even have a profile there. It was like blowing her mind. So I think those two things, do that first. It will take you 30 minutes. Just play around with it. And then you can begin to frame up how you're going to use it for your business.
I think, Jenna, that's so powerful what Kate just said. I came into this world of doing Pinterest marketing for business, being a user every day of Pinterest for 6 years. So I didn't take a course when I started doing Pinterest for my first blog. I just did what I already knew I was engaging with. Just like Kate said, this is so good.
Yeah, I love that. And I think too, if you've only used it for one purpose, like try testing out different things, like type in different things in the search bar and just see different types of content. Like people will be like, it's not going to work for my business. I'm like, there's a good chance that somebody else is already doing it successfully in your field. Like go type in 2 to 3 keywords of how you would describe what you do or what you sell. And like, you're going to see that there are already people on there, and that's signs that it's a platform that you will do well on. Like to me, it's not signs of competition. I feel like Pinterest removes a lot of the barriers that we often feel that hold us back from actually doing the work we're meant to do, where it doesn't feel like competition, because I feel like the clearer you are in your strategy, the easier it is to reach the people you're creating for. But it's also like a sign of like, this is relevant and this works here. So join the party, jump in, the water's warm. Like it's amazing. Where can everybody find each of you and connect with you? Heather, you go first.
Just heatherferris.com. Everything is there.
Amazing. And Kate?
simplepinmedia.com.
Amazing. Thank you guys so much. I am so excited to be on this Pinterest journey with you. I'm so excited that we get our own little group of educators hanging out together. Like it feels really exciting. And I just have not had a lot of people I can nerd out on this topic with. So I just feel like we have a little sisterhood going. Thank you so much for doing this with me today.
Thanks, Jenna.
This was so fun. I have been teaching Pinterest for years upon years, and I have never gotten to nerd out with other Pinterest experts. It was so fun talking with Heather and Kate. Obviously, we know the magic of Pinterest, but sometimes it takes hearing it from someone else to really buy in. So I hope today this conversation just lit a spark in you to get serious about a platform that can give you long-term results. Again, if you want to join me and learn more about Pinterest, save your seat for my free masterclass. I will teach you how to create once and get traffic for months. I will walk you through how Pinterest works, how you can create content strategically, how you can take one piece of content and turn it into 10 different pins. I will literally visually show you. So if you are someone who has to see it to believe it, this free masterclass is for you. You can save your seat right now at teachmetopin.com. That's teachmetopin.com. Save your seat and I'll see you there. And if you are listening to this episode and you have someone in the back of your mind that you're like, hey, I would love for them to get off that content creation hamster wheel, or hey, they need a more sustainable approach, or hey, I hope their business is still in business in 5 or even 10 years, then this episode is one that you must send to them. Be a good friend, help a sister or brother out, help a small entrepreneur get their work seen and lengthen the lifespan of all the beautiful things that they create. And again, I hope to see you in the masterclass. That's teachmetopin.com. Until next time, goal diggers, keep on digging your biggest goals. And thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Thanks for pulling up a seat for another episode of the Goal Digger Podcast. I hope today's episode fueled you with inspiration, gave you information that you can turn into action, and realigned you with your true north in life and business. If you've enjoyed today's episode, head on over to goaldiggerpodcast.com for today's show notes, discount codes for our sponsors, freebies to fuel your results, and so much more. And if you haven't yet, make sure you're subscribed so that you never miss a future show. We'll see you next time, Goal Diggers.